Leo this. Today in front of me here is an American girl who knows real psychedelic experiences in America. Hi Cherry.
Hi.
I believe still so many Japanese people think weed is bad, weed is unhealthy, or some people believe weed is good, but LSD or other psychedelic is very harmful. So today I'm gonna ask her what is really happening in America, how many percentage of people experience psychedelic substances. So let's ask her. So Cherry, when was your first time you smoked weed?
Well, the first time that I smoked weed, I was probably about 14.
Okay.
So I was in high school. I decided it would be a brilliant idea to smoke weed for the first time at school on lunch break. It was actually in a very typical place for people to smoke weed. But most American high schools have some kind of sports field, like a football field or soccer field. There are these seats along the side called bleachers. So it's a bit more of a hidden place. So it's a place that a lot of kids like to sneak off to and smoke whatever or do whatever.
I really love you say like a typical place to smoke weed.
Yeah, it's
we have
a very...
no idea what's the typical place to smoke weed.
Well, for an American teenager in high school, that is a very typical place to smoke weed. Yeah, I don't know why I decided it would be the best time for me to experience it for the first time. In some places, where I grew up, there were a lot of other drugs that were available. Sometimes marijuana, you would get like small bags of it. And it could be potentially laced with something. So there could be cocaine in it or crack in it or something like other than weed.
Okay.
Now, with some experiences with marijuana, people tend to get paranoid. And this is usually if you are doing it in a place that you don't feel comfortable. And for a lot of people, even if they're in their own home or they're comfortable somewhere, they may have these deeply rooted fears of something that come to the surface when they smoke weed. Yeah, once I started realizing that I could not function in reality, I realized that smoking at school was probably not the best idea. They ended up calling my dad, who had no idea that I was high at all. Okay. So that was at least, I got to go home and kind of trip in a more secluded location. And I do remember being in the back seat of his car, watching the wind. There was a ribbon that was attached to a door, and it was a windy autumn day. So there was leaves kind of floating through the air, and I just felt this game that was being played between nature and something that was man-made. It was this kind of restricting the movement of the leaf, this natural thing. And so in my mind I thought, wow, this is what we're doing to the earth. We are restricting the earth's natural progression and natural flow, and we are interrupting the design by creating things that, even though we believe that we need these things, right, in our life, it made me wonder, like, how would life be without these things? That those leaves, they would have been able to have their own journey and just go wherever they wanted, but this man-made thing was restricting their movement. So it was like this giant...
Did it happen to you when you were 14 years old?
Yeah.
You were very sanded 14 years old girl. That's crazy beautiful.
So I felt very connected to the metaphors of life. Like I was very open to the signs that nature was providing me.
Yeah, how many percent of the kids smoke weed in high school?
Probably in my high school it would probably have been about 50%. I want to say.
A lot, 50%.
Yeah, not necessarily that they're smoking it regularly, but maybe that 50% have tried it before. In the town that I grew up in, there wasn't a lot to do. People got into substances pretty early. Yeah, I think it affects people differently, but it depends on their mindset, depends on their personality. Typically, if you're smoking indica, that's going to make you feel more calm and relaxed.
Yeah, it's more
right?
stoner.
Yeah. So those are probably the people who are going to lay on the couch and want to watch a movie or play video games or something like that. But if you're smoking sativa, then it gives you kind of a more energetic high.
Yeah,
And
definitely I prefer that.
Yeah,
I
me
feel like
too.
I really want to play music or
Yes.
move, walk, talk.
yeah, do some kind of activity. So usually I would smoke sativa. Later in life as an adult, I figured out how to balance the sativa and indica in my routine. So I would usually just smoke sativa during the day, and then when I wanted to go to sleep, I would smoke a lot of indica. It would help.
You also told me like your mom smoking weed for medical reason, right?
Yeah. So actually, when I was in high school, my parents were really against it because they were raised to believe that it was, the devil's drug and stuff like that, like how a lot of people feel about it here. But as time went on, more studies came out with the medical benefits, details. She has a medical issue, and she has a lot of muscle spasms. So her muscles get really tight and uncomfortable, and they move uncontrollably. And she, instead of taking all these pills and all this medication, she has found that CBD and smoking
Healthy and organic.
THC, yeah. She became more open to it, and now she smokes out of a little corncob pipe, which is so
Cool. Your mom is
It's
so
so-
cool. So Charlie, what do you think? Like how Japanese people gonna change once weed get legalized in Japan? What do you think?
like their personal lives.
Yeah, how Japanese people gonna change?
Well-
like Japanese culture, Japanese people's life.
I see a lot of people suffering from mental disabilities and depression, especially.
Exactly.
I would hope that potentially the suicide rate could actually go down. If people started smoking weed, that could help them with their depression. Because, like I said earlier, I think that Japan doesn't want to talk about mental health. They don't want to diagnose people because there's a stigma. So these people who are likely suffering without having an understanding of why they're suffering, or they feel shame about suffering, they may be able to release a lot of those negative feelings, or, not only psychologically, but physically. So I think the initial benefit is always going to be medical and mental health benefits to start. And then as time goes on, maybe it's going to become more of a mindset. People will be able to open themselves to think in different ways and act in different ways. And it's not necessarily going to impact Japanese culture in a negative way. It's not going to stop people from being who they are. It's nothing to fear, really. It's something that is unknown for some people, and people are afraid of the unknown. But if they experience it and they realize that it is beneficial for the mind and the body, I think a lot more people will become just happier in general, more open about their feelings and about how they feel and what they're feeling. It might change a little bit of the tatemae. It's helpful and harmful. So I think it could help kind of balance tatemae culture a little bit.
Yeah, people get focused on tatema a bit too much. Like sometimes they're ignoring their soul voice.
Yeah.
And they get really kind of get robotic sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, tatema is a very, very robotic culture. It's not their soul voice.
Yeah.
Right? Society forces them to say them.
Yeah.
Like they're employees in convenience stores or
Yeah.
everywhere people are has to
Suppressed.
Yeah.
And the more people suppress their inner thoughts, their inner emotions, the more that's going to eat away at your soul. It's going to make you be depressed, or anger builds up, sadness builds up. All these emotions that if we can just express these feelings in a more natural way, I think there will be fewer violent or my hope, honestly, is just that maybe the suicide rate will go down. I think a lot of people who are experiencing depression or, mental illness will be able to manage that a lot more.
はい、いかがでしたでしょうか。なかなかこうやってアメリカ人女性のリアルな、アメリカでどういう風にマリファナが吸われて、どういう風に使われているのかって知る機会なかったんじゃないかなっていう風に思います。なかなか大麻の偏見ってまだまだなくならないですけど、身近に大麻怖いって思ってる人とか、大麻すごく依存性あるって思ってる人がいたら、ぜひこの動画を見せてシェアしてください。ということで最後にビッグラブをお送りして終わりたいと思います。はい、チャーリー今日はどうもありがとう。チャーリー can you send me your good vibes? Like by your hands under I'm gonna send it to them like okay in dark okay 人類の魂を癒すスピリチュアルハーブの偏見が少しでもなくなることを祈って最後にビッグラブをお送りします。ではいきます。ビッグラブ。はい、伝わりましたでしょうか。それではまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。See you guys for next. またねー。バイバイ。バイバイ。